All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
And welcome to Chicago Junction, the radio program that is all about the amazing world of railroading, both the many facets of the industry and model railroading itself. I am your announcer, Brian Ballou, and here is our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, and the chief electrical engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, June the 19th, the year 2019. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Thank you very much, John. And now to slip in from my announcer role to being the chief dispatcher here and semi-host.
With the emphasis on semi.
Yeah, it's right. Always semi. My name is Brian Ballou. I'm retired Navy railroader, and I am a model railroader, and I also do Operation Lifesaver. Belong to several fine organizations, and somehow still managed to stay here with these guys. And on my right, we have Ron.
I'm Ron Stock, from retired library director at Eisenhower Library. Railroad lover and also a model HO gauge and just all around railroad fan.
Hi, this is Doug Kanyuk. I'm adjunct professor over at Wright College, officer in the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago, and a longtime N-scaler and rail fan.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant, a director with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and a lifelong Lionel operator and collector.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrew Fedone, and I'm fully engrossed in railroading in all forms. I'm a member and board member of the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club, co-owner of Lombard Hobbies, located in Lombard, Illinois, as well as a personal modeler in N-scale.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And I'm Dave DeRuska, retired locomotive engineer, currently happily retired. Vice President and Program Coordinator for the Blackhawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society, and seems the spark plug for Chicago Railroad History Month, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Once we get underway. I guess you'll probably hear it mentioned several times, but we will be having a visitor next month come to the Chicago area. Okay, into West Chicago. But you'll be the world's largest steam locomotive in the world.
Not going to be a guest on the show, though.
We can only try. We can only try.
Maybe a phone-in.
Yeah. And we'll be able to talk about that a little bit later. So, to get the things going, how about you, Ron?
First of all, do you want to take Andrew as our guest today, speaker? And he'll talk a little bit about the anniversary of the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club, which is celebrating 50 years. And in addition to that, there was, I think it's either over or coming up, the N-Scale Convention.
Coming up, yes.
Yes, and then also his hobby shop, the Lombard Hobby Shop, which I have to admit I've gone to and has a great array of HO products as well as very reasonable prices.
Not that you would know, right?
Yeah, well, actually, yes.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me here this evening and talking a little bit about all things model railroading, specifically what I'm more involved in. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club. As you mentioned, we currently are celebrating our 50th anniversary, 50 years in a model railroad club, starting in 1969, of course. We started in Elmhurst, and we still are in Elmhurst, although we've encountered three different moves, three what we call phases. The first phase started as the original in Elmhurst, downtown Elmhurst, under it was a Paradise Restaurant was the name of the restaurant above us. Of course, we were in a basement like many clubs. There we grew and did quite well, and we've had many members over the years. Currently, we have about 150 members. But over the years, we've spawned many model railroad ventures, hobbyists, well-known hobbyists, businesses. We've got a lot to be proud of in our heritage, but most of all, we enjoy promoting the model railroading hobby. Our second phase, we went to Bensonville. Actually, we're called the White Pines, but we were still really the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club per se. We expanded quite a bit, and then due to some changes down the road, we ended up moving back into Elmhurst in 1986, where we currently are located in what we call Phase 3. My specific involvement with the club began when I was a very young teen, with being a father that died at a very young age. I had an interest in model railroading, so I was fortunate that my mom promoted me to get involved and got to know a lot of the guys at the club, and that's really where my love of model railroading began. And I started in HO, but am now an N-scale. It actually changed that in the club at that time. So I've been an N-scaler for some 30-some-odd years. So the club does a lot for the hobby itself. We promote, we have a swap meet we do. We do host local scout groups. We do an Operation Lifesaver, like another gentleman here does. So we try to do a lot of things with the hobby. Recently, recently meaning about 8 years ago, we began a new project. We've always had HO and N-scale at the club, but N-scale has kind of been one of those things that had waned off previously, and the club decided to get back involved with it. So about 8 years ago, they started with that, and that's when I became involved again in the club, highly involved, and actually as a board member for the last 7 years. Our N-scale layout's been featured in Model Railroader a couple years ago, and most recently it was featured on the cover and the 10-page centerfold spread on N-scale railroading. We have a very progressive layout with touchscreen operating controls, no toggle switches anywhere on the layout, and has been really quite a success with that. We still have a lot more to go, but we're about 95% done with track, 25% done with scenery. And the nice thing about our club, besides promoting it, the hobby, is that we have open houses to the public twice a week, which is very unusual for a lot of places. So on both Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons, you can come by and enjoy watching trains and talking with many of our members who are glad to share. We really do enjoy that aspect of it, and I'm glad to be celebrating in one of the host clubs, which I'll dovetail into talking a minute about. The N-scale National N-scale Convention is being held here in Chicago. That's actually coming up starting on June 26th, next on Wednesday, and that'll go through Saturday. There's also a show on Saturday. The convention hosts, we do tours of local layouts, many incredible layouts, many of which I think a lot of our listeners would know about, and not just N scale. We appreciate all scales, so when we do tours, we do all scales. We're visiting with Ted Schneff's 8-0 scale layout, huge, beautiful layout based on the Milwaukee Road. Greg Bedlick's HO layout. Bill Denton, who's a well-known N-scaler, is also on the tour, as well as the Reed Brothers, another well-known N-scale group.
Well, that sounds like you're well-rounded anyway.
Yes, yeah, well, I live, eat, and sleep trains. My wife is definitely a train widow at times, especially with the hobby shop I co-own with the founder, my fellow partner, Jeff Weinberg, who Jeff's been in the business for 40-some-odd years, and being a friend of his for many years, I came into ownership partnership about 2 years ago, when we decided to try to take the shop to a new level and really capitalize on what is really a overall decreasing market in model railroading, but yet many shops have gone away around the nation, and yet there's new blood coming in. I see it as a club member at the club, coming in on a younger scale, but not as fast as some of us old guys are leaving it. But it is still a bright future, though in a lesser capacity. But we're very hopeful for the industry as a whole. And there's some exciting new stuff that many of our listeners and panel here are probably well aware of. That's going on with the incredible detail, sound, realism, amount of products available. Just really kind of a neat time to be in the hobby and enjoy all its facets.
That's true. Again, where is your shop located?
Lombard Hobbies is appropriately located in Lombard, Illinois, which is straight west of Chicago. Downtown Chicago is probably about 35-40 minutes. So we're centrally located, but we do half our business on the internet. We're known as a value leader in HO and N scale. We do not do other scales, but we do HO and N scale. And we do quite a bit of business with that, and as I said, expanding on that as well.
Well, what street address?
Street address is 524 East St. Charles Place in Lombard. Basically, if anyone is a real history buff of railroads, if they know where the Chicago and Northwestern and the Great Western crossed in Lombard, we are directly in the shadow of that bridge, the bridge now being the Illinois Prairie Path, and then crossing over the UP West Main Line there, which I may add, talking about a visitor next month, having the big boy in, that will be an awesome place to get a nice overhead shot of it going westbound.
Oh, definitely. And then you can set up for your shot when it leaves on Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
Going to Clinton. No, do you have a web address?
Yes, our website is www.lombardhobby.com. We are Lombard Hobbies, plural, but that is our website is actually Lombard Hobby. But if you Google Lombard Hobbies, that will come up. We recently have a new website we've redesigned and made it easier for our customers to enjoy. And as I said, do half our business on the web. And of course, today with the technology available, many people look at the web as a way to see what's new and what's going on, and so it's a big help for even our in-store customers.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Does the Railroad Club have a website as well?
Yes, it does. Also a newly redesigned website, and that is the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club. That's at www.emrc for the Elmhurst Model Railroad Club .org. So again, you can Google Elmhurst Model Railroad Club. That'll also have information on our open house times, which is weekly, as I mentioned earlier, as well as some of our other activities and events occurring at the club.
And all that information will show up on the Chicago Junction Facebook page.
On your N-scale convention, can you still register for it, and the day of the program, and where's it taking place?
Registration is currently closed until they actually are in town. So there is registration available on site. In the transition from getting themselves set up, it's temporarily closed for right now. But you can do that on site on Wednesday. It is being held at the Crown Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel, located on River Road in Rosemont. I think many people will be understanding of where that is, but you can also Google National N-Scale Convention. N-Scale Enthusiast is the actual promoter of the event. There's tours, though many of the layout tours, I believe, are filled currently. There is shows going on, vendors there. Saturday there is a big train show open to all, but it is N scale only, so keep that in mind for those other scale modelers. So yes, it is. Can still participate in some form when it's in town.
Sounds. Well, we're gonna have a good weekend.
Definitely. All trains is always good.
Oh, definitely on that. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Really, gave us a lot of information, which is quite good.
Thank you. It's our pleasure and my personal pleasure to also help promote a passion of mine, model railroading, whether it be in a club form, a convention, or shopping and purchasing products. Certainly has many wonderful aspects that I think we all enjoy and enjoy promoting.
Oh, definitely. Well, like I said, thank you for coming, and then please stick around and so you can add some more to it.
Thank you.
Doug,
Yes, sir.
it's your turn.
Okay, just got a few couple
you-
items.
I mean, you're a few weeks behind. So.
Yes. Here's one that came up. This came up on the STB site. The Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program, United States Army Military Surface Deployment and Distribution Command, and Fluor Marine Propulsion is suing CP because CP won't switch their last 430 feet of spur track. Yes, and it's a long thing. This has been going on since April, back and forth. What happened was, back in the 80s, this track was switched by the D&H. It went past the end of the line. D&H did an abandonment that stopped at their freight station where they received nuclear casts to be re-engineered and sent back, reloaded or something. When they filed the abandonment papers, they mismeasured. Now somebody at CP Rail discovered they mismeasured. So the last 430 feet is, according to CP, is abandoned. The government saying, no, it's active rail. You guys need to bring our nuclear material to the end of the line. And that's what they're fighting over, 430 feet of track.
So you think lawyers are involved in this in
Yes.
some way?
Oh, it doesn't fit in with the precision railroading.
Right. Now, you know where this place is located? I actually had to go look it up. It's in a place called Ballaston, New York, which is halfway between Schenectady and Saratoga.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's a good place to do nuclear. And if you look on Google Map, you'll see that there's a flat car with a nuclear cast sitting on it on the siding,
Yep.
on the spur. So again, I'm just like reading this, going, it's 430 feet.
Can't they just kick the cars?
And on their last posting, they posted unclassified pictures of the operation.
Who did?
The naval guys, which I thought was funny. They're supposed to keep it secret, right? Here it is.
There are no secrets.
Yeah.
Oh.
When the name of the place is Ballast Town, I mean, anybody under the false impression
There's
that
the,
it's an Air
railway
Force
army
operation.
yard. See, it says under CP Rail, government CP.
Yeah.
That's the little piece they're arguing over. So anyway, that came up. They've been fighting this now for a couple of months, back and forth. It's the last posting's like 138 pages.
They're Canadians. What do you expect?
So,
They don't care.
okay, now Dave's favorite operation: Sioux Line versus the Illinois Tollway Authority.
One of my favorites.
This time they promised the Surface Transportation Board that they will have this settled by August 9th. We'll see. You got two entities, both have eminent domain powers, fighting over the tollway wants to wrap 490. It's now called wrap around the airport on the south and the west side. The south end is owned by CP Rail. CP Rail told the authority, no, you can't have the land. The authority said, no, we have eminent domain, we're taking it. The railroad said, no, you're not. It's interstate commerce. Too bad. Now they're fighting over it. And they're still fighting over it. So,
And Washington refused, the STB doesn't want to do anything with it.
nope, they said they'll put them into arbitration. They both said no. But they're still talking to each other. Bartlett does not like the idea of the Sioux Line and again CP and CN expanding the interchange at Spalding. Yeah. Said here that they're claiming all kinds of things, that crossings are being blocked and blah, 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 blah. The last posting on this, 128, quote, citizen complaints were posted on the website. They're fun to read. I go to school, I have to wait for a train. That's what a lot of them say.
Yeah.
Finally, remember the revisionary people that for land fighting the trails?
Yeah.
Okay, new one. Landowners in the Flying S land versus the trail people. This is in Nebraska. Nebraska, Kansas, and Colorado Railway abandoned a line of track in Nebraska. So far, so good, right? The trail people said we want it for a trail. Nebraska said, okay. They tore out the tracks, then sold the right-of-way to a company called LIRR, who is in the process of trying to sell the land back to the landowners who own the right-of-way. Turns out the line itself has never been officially abandoned. This one's got a whole chain on the STB of fighting back and forth over it.
Okay.
Apparently, the railroad never owned the land. It was like leased from the landowners. So now this other guy is trying to sell it back to the owners.
Who own it anyways?
Yeah. So that's what
I got to get into that kind of business, you know?
Oh, I mean, that is. And we get crazy here sometimes.
Anytime it involves lawyers.
See, that's just it. We can't make up this stuff. Real life is.
Truth is stranger than fiction. No
well,
doubt.
you know, just like the trail people in Oregon at the Portland Zoo.
Yeah, right.
They want to take the railroad out from Portland Zoo to make a trail.
That's all I got.
Oh, is that enough? Welcome back, Doug.
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, we're glad to have you.
We
here.
have you, yeah.
All right, I've got a few things. Chicago Railroad History Month. 2 years ago, I decided that Chicago has paid very little attention to its railroad history. The last really big hoop-de-doo was the Chicago Railroad Fair in 47, 48, or was it 48 and 49? I think it was 48 and 49,
Both.
where they gathered all these railroads came to Chicago with equipment. They set up a huge display out where the World's Fair had been previously on the lakefront, and it was a big deal. But it was sort of like the swan song for American railroads too, because after that things started to go south for American railroading. So the 150th anniversary passed without any kind of recognition. So I said, you know what? The 175th anniversary is coming up in 2023. And to get things started off, I decided to request from the city of Chicago a proclamation declaring a month of the year Railroad History Month. Last year it was November. This year it's October for various and sundry reasons. One of them being that there are conflicting dates as to when the actual first train ran, or what you would consider the first train. Equipment trains ran in October for construction. Supposedly there was a train with dignitaries that ran when the rail line opened up. They didn't have any passenger cars, so they rode on whatever they had at the time. That has been dated as either being in October or November. So this year I decided to split hairs and just make it October. The weather's better and it's not Thanksgiving. So first year we got our proclamation from Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and this year we have our mayoral proclamation from the new mayor, Lori Lightfoot. Now last year I made the mistake of waiting too long, so we didn't get the proclamation till almost November. Well, this year we got it early, so I'm beginning to do publicity and promotion, talking to people. I'm hoping to get a meeting with some people from the Chicago Office of Special Events to see, gauge their interest in doing something in 2023. I figured, each year I will go ahead, put in a request for a proclamation. That's really not a difficult process. You do it on the internet, and hopefully in each consecutive year we'll be building up momentum towards that 2023. I did have some very nice support letters from different groups, including the Chicago History Museum. Unfortunately, my contact at the museum passed away recently, so I'm starting anew with them. So what I'm at least hoping at the minimum is to get the Chicago History Museum involved, as well as the Center for Railroad Photography and Art, which did a very nice co-sponsored exhibit of Frank Delano photographs a number of years ago at the museum. So that's the minimum. Beyond that, I have no idea where we can go. I mean, the sky's the limit. Pretty much it's really me right now doing it. I'm doing it through the auspices of the Blackhawk chapter of the National Railway Historical Society. So that gives us a little bit of, credibility. So that's what's going on there. So it's going slowly. We have a website. We have a which is crrhm.com, and we also have a Facebook page. And I'm hoping to get going on publicity once the 4th of July holiday is done with. See if we can't get any promotion. Last year, really not nary a nibble from any media source as to what we're doing. So I'm hoping if we're getting started early this year, it might be able to get some people interested. So that's going on with that. And then I got a few news items. The big one that came across my email today was that the White House has issued a veto threat against the fiscal 2020 funding bill, saying President Trump was disappointed at Congress for boosting investment in Amtrak instead of eliminating the national network as outlined in the president's budget request. So all these groups that are interested in passenger rail are asking their members to contact their elected representatives and speak up for Amtrak and the national network. I have no idea what's going on because the president at one time was all for high-speed rail, so who knows what's going on over there. Canadian national officials seek to double-track 4.27 miles of former Elgin Joliet Eastern Track to speed the flow of freight and bypass Chicago's congested rail hub. But the plan is facing, of course, a regulatory hurdle and growing opposition from municipalities and residents. Surprise, surprise. CN, acting under its Wisconsin Central Limited subsidiary, has applied to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for a permit to build the additional mainline track from Shoe Factory Road to Spalding Road between the village of Hoffman Estates and the city of Elgin. The proposed work, when combined with existing tracks, would create a 6.1 mile long segment on a corridor that was one of the primary north-south main line tracks along the Wisconsin Central Line corridor that transports between Winnipeg, Canada, and Chicago. Forecasted capacity for 2020 includes an additional 9 trains per day along this stretch. The second main line is intended to allow for uninterrupted flow of freight traffic, allowing northbound and southbound trains to pass freely without stopping or slowing, the application states. Shades of what's going on in Glenview. The forecast, let's see, I said that. Second main line would also reduce vehicle delays at Shoe Line Factory Road grade crossings, which can be extensive, and would positively affect commuter rail traffic on Metro's Milwaukee District West Line, which intersects the track at the southern end of the proposed project. So right now it's in the, yak phase, and we're going to see where that goes. CNN officials said the goal was to speed the flow of trains, not have them idling on a siding, which would be a fundamental breakdown of service to customers. Since when did the railroads care about customers? Let's see. Metro representatives from 2 counties vying for expanded Metro service appeared before the Commuter Rail Agency's board of directors to plead their cases, but it appears unlikely that any expansion will occur anytime soon. So basically, Kendall County village of Oswego and the village of Sugar Grove in neighboring Kane County both urged Metro officials Wednesday to extend service beyond the BNSF line's termination in Aurora to their communities, separated by only a few miles, but located on different railroads. Oswego is the BNSF's Mendota subdivision. Its route to Galesburg and Sugar Grove is on the Aurora subdivision, part of the route to Minneapolis and St. Paul. So Metro's officials reiterated that the agency's first priority is to maintain its existing systems and repair and replace aging rolling stock and infrastructure. And to prove that, they set a locomotive on fire at Union Station the other day.
Those 2 counties would have to get Illinois permission to join Metro.
Right.
So they got a lot of hurdles
they'd
to
have
jump.
they'd have to join the RTA,
Right.
essentially. They'd have to get in, be part of the taxing body that RTA encompasses. Let's see, one more thing. Oh, yeah, here's one. This one came in today. Out in beautiful Wells, Nevada, a Union Pacific train reportedly carrying grenades and other munitions has derailed near Wells, briefly closing a 6-mile stretch of Interstate 80. Elko County Sheriff's Office reports on its Facebook page that 22 cars derailed, but those carrying munitions were located at the opposite end of the train from the derailed cars. Vegetable oil and aluminum oxide were spilled by the derailed cars. So, that's it from me.
And UP answered, oops.
Oh, one more thing. I want to plug a book here by a friend. I recently picked up a copy of a book called Chicago Union Station. Now, this is not a railfan book. This is a history book, and it's an excellent history book. And anybody interested in the history of early Chicago railroading, especially the passenger trains and the train stations downtown and the politics that was involved in bringing these trains into Chicago, must get this book. It's published by Indiana University Press, and it's, like I say, it's not full of pictures. So if you're picking it up to see pictures of train stations, you'll see some good illustrations that are cogent to the text, but it's not a railfan book. It's a historian's book, and I am loving it. I'm loving it to death. That's it for me.
Yes, sir.
I got a few things.
Go right ahead.
For those who like to get out and ride on trains, the 20th Century Railroad Club has their Trip 19B for Galesburg train days coming up imminently. It may be sold out at this point, but it's certainly worth a try. And if you can't get in with the 20th Century Railroad Club, Amtrak does go to Galesburg twice a day, both morning runs, and comes back twice in the late afternoon. 20th Century Railroad Trip 19-T as in Tom, D as in David -1 is making the trip out to Pennsylvania through the train country out there. Strasburg Rail Museum. I believe it's a 5-day trip. You can go to the 20th Century Railroad Club. You can Google them, get their web address, and go get more information.
Well, yeah. Well, Trains Magazine's also offering a trip through the Keystone State, hitting several areas.
20th Century Railroad Club put out a little blurb about the most recently passed Illinois budget, which increases money for trains, and there is interest in establishing a new train between Chicago and the Quad Cities, and it stated Quad Cities are building a new train depot to encourage that. For those of you who can see what's on the table in front of me, are the two Lion scale mechanical reefer cars, the 2018 25th anniversary car for the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and the 2019 mechanical reefer 25th anniversary Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and they are in a Kodachrome paint job with the main colors reversed. These literally arrived at the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club this morning at 10:15, and I was on hand to make sure that I had mine so I could bring it tonight. It's a beautiful car. Right now there are about 30 of the 2019 cars available, and if you are interested, please go to the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club website and you'll find information there. And the first Saturday in June was a red letter day for the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club. We sponsored the Railroading Merit Badge Clinic again for the Boy Scouts. We had 125 scouts, including 10 young ladies who had recently joined Scouts BSA, and in many cases they were far more interested in learning about trains than the rest of the scouts.
No.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. And,
No, I have to agree with you.
Brian was there, and I know he retired as a chief petty officer, but he did yeoman duty presenting the Operation Lifesaver material. And this year, more so than in years past, I don't remember any really worthless questions being asked.
True. That happened when I walked around
Yeah.
and did individual. But yeah, it's my 6th, 7th year doing that.
Yeah. Brian is the tremendous presenter. He's over 6 foot tall, and with that head of white hair of his, you don't know whether you're dealing with Santa Claus or Gandalf the White, but he has nothing but wisdom to share with the young scouts.
Well, yeah, the scouts saw me and I had the white beard and all, and they just, this old fart don't know anything.
We don't.
Well,
We don't.
What do we know?
I had one young lady told me that a freight train with 100 cars can stop in 600 feet. And I said, I'll tell you what, I got $95 in my pocket right now. I'll bet you any part of it that train with 100 cars isn't going to stop in anything less than a mile. And I happened to be a railroading merit badge counselor, and I got to see her at the end of the day when she came to share the knowledge she had picked up. And I said, 600 feet? She says, no, it takes a mile for a train that big to stop. But when my kids were younger, we took a Union Pacific train, part of the Heritage Fleet, from Chicago to Clinton, Iowa. And it was a UP presenter, and he came on with the soda can versus car versus railroad engine. And I think that poster made a major impression on a lot of young people. They just don't realize the amount of weight and the amount of momentum involved when trains are moving. And, you know, Brian, you done good.
Hey, if I save one, I've done good. If I saved one.
I know you made an impression on a few, and I hope you get the payoff of saving one. And gentlemen, that's all I have to share at the moment.
Well, I guess it's my turn.
It's Brian time. Big boy, big boy, big boy.
Oh yeah, let's get it over with.
Big boy.
Let's get it on.
Oh yeah. Now let's face it. John Pisciuto, I've been waiting for him to come back so I can rub it in his face. He tried to tell me that the C&O Virginian Allegheny had a larger firebox than the UP Big Boy. He's a few square feet off on that one. He says, well, it's got a 6-wheel trailing truck that's supporting it. I says, yeah, but when you didn't look at the UP model and saw the 2 driving wheels were supporting the front end of the firebox, and the back end was over the 4-wheel trailing truck. So it's coming to town.
He'll probably never come back now, Brian.
I know it.
He's humiliated.
Yeah.
But Brian, if he was incapable of making mistakes, he would have been you.
Oh, I've made enough. I've made my fair share here, believe me. I know that. You ain't going to get me that easy. Anyway. But, yeah, UP Big Boy's going to be here on the 26th of July. She's leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's the time out. She'll come down from Butler, probably using the new line all the way. So Pleasant Prairie would be a good spot to be set up to get a nice, clean shot.
You're not going to go the old line, huh?
Yeah, I'd like to see him do the old line going through Kenosha.
Going through Racine, God.
Oh, yes. And then, basically, you can get on 41, go along the tracks. You'll see her once you get past Gurney. And then, but somebody mentioned, yeah, we ought to just head straight for Shermer to see it go over across that bridge.
One time.
It's a new bridge.
Oh, that's one of them. I'm waiting for that girder bridge.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's been weight tested.
Yeah, and but you can catch that, and it's going to be doing 30 mile an hour, so you might even get a good spot in Des Plaines. You can get a trackside coming by the old miniature golf course. But then it'll hit the north end of Proviso. Go over, pick up the west line, West Chicago. So you can get there in plenty of time to get it on the bridge, get a good shot of it coming down. I'm glad Andrew agrees with me.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, you'll have some great shots, and think about it. You'll be traversing over what one time was the Pioneer for the Chicago Northwestern when it came out. all the way out to Elmhurst, so part of the way anyway. But yeah, so very historic times coming up.
That's
A
it.
lot of people are very excited about it.
Yeah, and one of the big movements that even the people in Virginia are shaking their heads. Why would we want to bring the Norfolk sister, have Norfolk 611 leave Virginia and go to Pennsylvania and spend a month and a half at the Strasburg Railroad? And what it was, it wanted to reunite it with their M-Class 480, the 475, which used to run on the Jefferson branch of the N&W, and is now one of the main engines behind number 90, number 31 of the Strasburg Railroad. And apparently when they put their first events on sales, apparently they had a record-breaking sellout. Thinking we might have to add a few more days. For different events, you can spend $5 on the days for photography, doing the photo sessions. It will be paid parking at Strasburg for the first time for $5 a piece, and for another $5 you can get to blow the whistle. And if you have $750, you can get up a cab and do throttle time. And that's what they're going to have. I mean, it's going to start Friday, September 27th. You can ride behind the 611, do behind-the-scene tours, cab tours, and do the whistle blow. Monday, the September 30th, will be a ride behind 611, behind-the-scene tours, cab tours, and whistle blow. Friday, October 4th. Above is the same. Monday the 7th, be railfan photography extravaganza, both morning and afternoon sessions available. Saturday, October 26th, Sunday, October 27th. At the throttle of the N&W steam locomotives, you can be engineer, fireman, or sit on the jump seat. In response to the news that N&W and 611 and 475 will appear together at Strasburg was an overwhelmingly positive, said Brian Bairton from the Virginia Museum of Transportation. And he's also 611 Operations Director. It will be an unprecedented celebration of N&W steam. N&W Class M 475 was built by Baldwin Locomotive Works. It was put into service in hauling freight and coal trains. N&W J 611, sole survivor of the 14 Class Js. Designed and built by the railway. Rolled out of Roanoke's East End shops in 1950. And its mission was to pull the Powhatan Arrow, a 15-car passenger train from Norfolk to Cincinnati. For more information, go to StrasburgRailroad.com. Fire up 611, a steam reunion.
The 611 was built in August of 1950. I had the privilege of riding behind it one time. The event program and the 8x10 color photo of the engine reside in my wife's china cabinet. That engine has Timken roller bearings on the wheels, on the axles that the wheels are mounted to. 10 men with a 2-inch rope tied to the front coupler and the engine in neutral on level ground can actually pull that engine down the track. It's just beautiful.
Good advertising. That's what they did for advertisement
I
back then.
don't think 10 men like us could do it.
10 men, good and true.
Okay, thank
That
you.
leaves you out.
It does.
10 men like Brian,
How
no
true.
problem.
How true. How true. How very true.
Here's to Madeline Kahn. And Fire Up 2100. This is the project of the American Steam Preservation Association with the goal of reviving number 2100 for the enjoyment and education of the general public. Restoration work is being done in Cleveland, Ohio. Recent update of work done. Finally reaming of the 554 stay bolt holes to the inner and outer sheets. Rods were cleaned, polished. Professional contractor can inspect them at a later date. Power reverse was installed back. The main auger, which has been in there for a while, they say it was removed from the Stoker 4 repairs, and says, figured that out a long time ago.
They lose it somewhere, did they?
They made it an oil burner,
Ah, okay.
and they decided to put the coal back in. So 2100. She was one of the engines that actually ran in the Reading Rambles. They're going to have another fundraiser for it on Saturday, September 21st, starting at 4:30. The guest of honor is going to be the legend of steam, Ross Rowland, and he's going to give a presentation about his career with railroad preservation, starting with the 765 and such. Or not 765, 759. And then using it to pull the Golden Spike Limited back in 1969. And he was going to talk about the American Freedom Train, Chessie Steam Specials, and how he got involved with his involvement with the 2100 that he picked up along with the 2101, which is for sale. Looks like a left out in the rain and not put away,
Okay.
and rode hard and left out there. It's a shame that everything's faded and rusted. But 21 knows it there, and that's available for sale too. But anyway, if you want to go to the Midwest Preservation Society's working roundhouse in downtown Cleveland, tickets are on sale for the fundraiser at $99 per person. All proceeds, after paying expenses, will go to the locomotive. Minnesota Steam join the Friends of the 261 in the Milwaukee Road Historical Society as they explore the history of the Hiawatha. You'll get to enjoy former employees on this of this once great railroad, and Milwaukee 261 takes a special journey on the route of the Hiawathas on the June 22nd. Train will head westward towards Glencoe, operated now by the Twin Cities and Western Railroad. Excursion will be rear mileage, former Milwaukee Road, heading towards the Winthrop on the Minneapolis and St. Louis Railway, now is known as the Minnesota Prairie. And on both days, the excursions will depart Minneapolis Junction at 9 a.m. and will last approximately 8 hours. And the train will include premium class, dome class, presidential class, first class, and coach. Want ticket information? You can go to 261.com.
What's going on with that locomotive that was in the Twin Cities that there was some question about the ownership? Some city was trying to get it back, get repatriated to their...
Oh, you're talking about the Sioux Line
Yeah,
locomotive.
yeah.
Da, 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 da,
I know you got it in that pile somewhere.
It is in there somewhere. Here we go. The 2719.
Okay.
Fate of Sioux Line locomotive 2719 appears to be back in Duluth's hands. The city of Eau Claire, which has been working to return this locomotive it owns, curbed to financial reality in early April when it voted to reopen attempts to lease the nearly operational 462 Pacific steam engine and tender. After researching options, the city learned that the cost to transport the engine and coal car would blow out a modest budget. In all likelihood, the Lake Superior Railroad Museum and its North Shore Railroad will retain the locomotive. Now in a protective storage at the Duluth Depot, plans are to return the locomotive 2719 to operational use on a rotational basis with current passenger mover Duluth and Northeastern locomotive number 28, which is a 280 consolidation. We have taken good care of the 2719 for the past decade plus. Museum and Railroad Executive Director Ken Bucher told the News Tribune the engine is incredible condition and could run right now if the boiler license hadn't expired. As one of the rare steam engines that's nearly operational left in existence, locomotive 2719 could be seen as potentially priceless. But because of the exorbitant costs to move the engine, as the city of Eau Claire learned, the locomotive has a limited actual value and has been exchanged for a handful of dollars during a series of transactions in the past 2 decades. Between 2006 and 2013, locomotive 2719 ran for the North Shore Scenic Railroad between Duluth, Minnesota and Two Harbors. Originally, it ran in passenger and freight service for roughly 40 years until its retirement in 1960. After that, it was put on display in Eau Claire until '96, when a series of transactions began. Theoretically, some other entity could be interested in the locomotive. If the Duluth doesn't want to lease it, and if future negotiations fail, the city of Eau Claire has stipulated it will issue a national request for proposals for either long-term lease agreement or even a buyer. Resolution said, but the Duluth Museum and Railroad already have come to a long-term plan to raise approximately $300,000 necessary to update the boiler to meet the Federal Railroad Administration standards. Boiler licenses expire every 15 years, and Bucher explained plans are to alternate locomotives 28 and 2719 every 15 years as those licenses come due. Securing a boiler license requires the modernizing of tubes and other parts of the boiler. He also stated that 2 years of work would follow on the 2719 after a 3-year fundraising effort was achieved. That's it.
So they traded it for a fistful of dollars.
Yep. And the man with no name.
Two things real quick, Brian. The Yellow Jacket that was down in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything on that?
Not lately.
Okay.
There
'cause
hasn't been anything
it was
lately.
supposed to be going
It has moved.
to rebuild.
Yeah.
And then
We talked about that and all,
and
but
it-
there hasn't been anything since.
okay. And
Yeah, they're picking up the parts along the trail.
quite possibly. I contacted the Steam Rail Institute up in Owasso, Michigan, and was able to get tickets for my wife and I to ride behind the 1225 on November 23rd coming up. I tried to get tickets for the car that we were supposed to ride last December when she fell ill and we weren't able to go, and that car was already sold out.
Mm-hmm.
But the first runs of the year will be on Saturday, November 23rd, and I believe they run up through the weekends, up through the 20th of December.
Yep.
But if you want to go ride behind the train that is the Polar Express, go to Steam Rail Institute, Google Steam Rail Institute, and you know, they'll give you the website and a phone number, and you can call. And I believe it's a $30 insurance fee. You're not seeing me make the bunny ears because this is digital radio. But I recommend you get the insurance because if something happens, I had the insurance last year, and everything that I had spent on it, with the exception of the $30, was returned to me.
That's good.
We're looking forward to doing this. I mean, not everybody knows that the engine sounds in the Polar Express movie are the Père Marquette 1225. You know, they sent a crew up there to capture all the train sounds. So I'm really, really looking forward to the trip.
No, that's good. Now, one other thing, one of our favorite Chicago engines, the Leviathan, which was built in Elgin by Dave Clokey, has a new home. He sold it to a gentleman, and it's in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. And there are Lincoln funeral cars there, and also he built a coach to go along with it. And it's supposed to be a replica of the coach that was behind the Pioneer. But they're getting a mile or two of track laid, so the engine will go back and forth, and they're doing, it's on the same roadbed. It's Pennsylvania Railroad that used to go through his property. And so that was the train, when it left Philadelphia to go into Harrisburg, went through his property on that roadbed. So they had it set up and actually running. They did a special train for the folks, and about the time the train came through.
Cool.
So
Now
yeah,
that's a captive railroad, right? That's not connected to anything.
Yep, it's not, you know, if they want to run it on something, they could move it, since they do have the trailers. You know, they can make arrangements to take it over to New Freedom and run it with the York, the other locomotive that Dave made for them up there, and they run. In fact, you can find there's a group guy out that's got some nice video. They had both engines there, and they even did their version of the Great Locomotive Chase. and if you want to get pictures of the Leviathan, better get them now because it's going to be painted. You're going to get it painted in a Pensy scheme. It's going to be a Pensy engine. No, they're not going to put cat whiskers on it.
Ron, you got a couple items here. Would you like
Yeah,
to talk
I-
about them briefly?
Sure. One, it was a long time getting it. It was supposed to come out, I think, May 10th, which was the day of the laying of the Golden Spike. And there's commemorative stamps that the U.S. Post Office put out about the 150-year anniversary. They have both engines, the Juniper and then the 199. And in the center they have another set of stamps which is called the Golden Spike. And they're really nice looking stamps. I don't know if a couple of the panelists said that they're out, at least at their post office. So if you find a post office maybe that it doesn't have a lot of railroad fans or that is a little more remote, maybe you might run across them. But they're a beautiful set of stamps.
Yeah, come out to my remote part of town.
You can keep them.
Mount
yeah.
Greenwood.
The other thing that I also have, I'm a member of the Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame, and this month's issue of their magazine, the summer edition 2019, they have a great cover photograph which features the Chicago White Sox as well as some of the crew they were going from Chicago to San Francisco for spring training in 1910. And they're pictured in Royal Gorge at the Royal Gorge Hanging Bridge. And it's a terrific photograph. combining trains and baseball, two of my favorite hobbies. The other thing that I did attend, and this is afterwards, I went to train days in Franklin Park, and it was kind of sparse this year. They only had 10 different pieces of equipment there, which I think was the lowest that I've ever seen in the last 10 years that I've gone there. Amtrak didn't provide any equipment. Surprise, surprise.
It broke down on the way.
Yeah.
And Metra's caught fire.
Oh, they just got there yesterday.
And Metra had the Hiawatha engine there, which was pretty nice. The only thing I was disappointed in, I don't think the engine's been running even a full year, and the Hiawatha emblem is pretty much faded out.
Yeah.
And paint job on the front, not to be critical, but doesn't look as sharp as certainly the Rock Island. The Rock Island seemed to hold up a little bit better. So I don't know if not being into that, what type of paint and whatever, but I was a little slightly disappointed, but it was still great to see them painted in a historical, one of the historical railroads. So
Now, where's Earl Scheib when you need him?
yeah.
I can paint any train for $69.99.
So my next, just
No ups
throwing
and
this
no
out
extras.
there. Do you think they'll do Burlington?
I don't know. You know, it
Because that was the other major railroad.
well, the thing with the Burlington is it's a purchase of service carrier. It's not really
Right.
a Metra carrier.
yeah.
So I highly doubt they're going to go ahead and do that. Are they going to do a GM&O locomotive?
Or CNNW?
CNNW? Well,
Well, that's
CNNW
true.
it's a contract carrier
used
too.
A lot.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
UP's a contract carrier.
Yeah, they're not going to. I was surprised that they did the Milwaukee. Honestly,
Right.
I really was.
Well, I could see them possibly because there've been a lot of models made with the Chicago Northwestern colors.
Right.
So that I could maybe see them doing. But anyway,
I think it may also have to do with the chairman of the board, Norm Carlson. You know, he may have had a hand in that Milwaukee Road paint scheme.
yeah, because reading one of the articles, they mentioned his name, I think, and stuff. You know. So. Anyway, that was kind of cool seeing that engine. Oh, the other two engines that they had there, which were really nice, they had two of the CSX engines. They had 911 one for first responders, which was done in fire truck colors, red and white. And then they also had a 1943 engine CSX, which was done in camouflage colors, which was also a
Oh, yeah,
Great
they're veterans locomotive.
yeah.
And you could see it with the
Pardon?
camouflage paint. You could
Well,
see it.
Yeah, well, to me, that's what it looked. I mean, it looked like-
It didn't fade into the background or
no.
anything.
But
It didn't have the urban camouflage.
No.
Yeah.
the only thing which surprised me, because the UP did their military World War II vets, and they used also for 1943. So I was surprised they both used the same numbers. I thought they would have, because the war did go from 41 to 45, and one of them might come up to, with 44 or something.
Well, UP used that number because that's when the airplane built.
Ah.
The Spirit of UP.
Oh, okay. That I didn't realize.
That's what came about. They were doing the for the Army Air Corps.
It was
Okay.
a B-17 that was purchased with war bonds, all purchased by UP employees. Unfortunately, the plane did not survive the war.
You look at the percentages of how many did survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing there's any left at all.
When the movie Memphis Belle was filmed, there were 37 B-17s on flight status left on the entire planet. They lost one filming that movie. Now, I don't know if they have gotten any more back on flight status in the interim. My wife and I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii in July, and there was a B-17 that was recovered in New Guinea, I believe. It made a forced landing in a swamp, and it was finally recovered, and they decided rather than try to put it back into museum diorama display, they created a diorama with the plane as it was when it was recovered. And they got a hold of the Disney Studios, and the Disney Studios created a logo for the plane called Swamp Ghost with Daffy Duck with boxing gloves on in his usual less than pleasant exactly. And it's the Swamp Ghost. And the diorama at the Pacific Air Museum looks just like the photographs of the airplane where it was discovered. They did a beautiful job. I mean, they cleaned it all up, preserved all the metal, and then put it back, painted it back to the condition that it was found.
A professional weathering job.
Very professional.
Big airbrush.
Big Badger. All right, gentlemen, I believe
Yes.
we're coming to the end of the line. So, as we say, happy rails to you. Until next month, when we go to Chicago Junction. Again, we want to thank Andrew for coming in.
Thank you.
You're welcome back anytime, sir.
Thanks for having us, and enjoy model railroading and the railroads.
Oh, definitely. Good luck with your convention. And I guess I'm going to have to go to a new hobby shop. And how long will it be before my wife figures it out?
Oh, we'll write a receipt for whatever you want it to say.
The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Here we go. As our express comes into the station, we want to thank you for joining us on our journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and can be listened to on the web at the www.windycityhometown.com, where you can listen to tonight's broadcast and all our past episodes. Also sample some of the other fine programs that are being offered. This is your announcer, Brian Ballou. Till next month when we journey to Chicago Junction.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, June the 19th, the year 2019. Chicago Junction was produced and directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Shikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, June 19th, the year 2019. Until next time, friends, please be safe and thanks for listening.